name is Vicki, and this is Heartland Knits and Sews, a YouTube channel where I talk about all the things that I love to do, mostly knitting and sewing. Today I have a knitting video for you, kind of try to catch you up with all my works in progress. Yesterday I had the best day. I'm recording this on Sunday, October the 22nd. So yesterday I sort of sat and knit all day long. I haven't done that in just the longest time. I went to the farmer's market and then I just sat myself down and I knit. I watched all kinds of sewing vlogs. I watched all kinds of like old movies on Amazon Prime and old TV shows. And anyway, I woke up this morning thinking I need to start recording more regularly. So there'll be sort of want to keep things separate, so there'll be sort of knitting videos and sewing videos. I have a lot to show you, so let's get started. What I was working on yesterday and what I have been working on pretty much this entire year, there is a sad story attached to that, but it is a bohus sweater. So this is a reproduction bohus. The pattern is called Våren, which is Swedish for the spring. And if you're not familiar with bohus, Stickney was a company that was formed in the 1930s and it ran through the 1960s. It was a collective that knit sweaters. There were only ever 4 designers of them, but they were really beautiful, finely knit, and sold in kind of big department stores. They were very expensive and they're very collectible if you can manage to find one. But kind of about 20 or so years ago, a dyer in Sweden started reproducing them. The yarns I don't think are quite as fine as they were originally. I have seen originals and have had my sweaters up against them, and I feel like the yarn was finer, but this is lace weight yarn, so it takes a while to knit through them. And they're beautiful, the colors, and they're merino angora yarn, so they get a really nice sort of halo on them. So anyway, this one is called Våren. I will show you the back of it. So this is called Våren, and it's these beautiful, beautiful colors. It is meant to represent sort of this chartreusey sort of green is to be like the new leaves when they first start to emerge in the spring. And I started this sweater, I ordered it between Christmas and New Year's last year, and it came, I don't know, a couple weeks into January, and I started knitting it thinking I am going to finish this and I'll take a beautiful picture like on a tree when the leaves are coming out and it'll be this spring. And yeah, that didn't happen. I knit on it a lot. I knit, once I got through the yoke, I knit on the body a lot during sort of Zoom calls and things. And yeah, it didn't get finished in the spring. And then, March or May and June sort of happened, and I kind of put my knitting aside because I'm really involved in a garden. I grow roses, and anyway, I thought that's fine. As long as it's done before knitting camp, it'll be fine. And I sewed a dress to go with it, a beautiful pink eyelet dress to wear with the sweater when I was at knitting camp. So it was July, and the sweater or cardigan, it's going to be steeked. So here is my steek. Down the center, that line shows where my steek field of steek stitches is. And it was getting to be sort of the middle of July, and it wasn't finished. The sleeves were finished, the body was finished. I needed to do the bottom band, the button bands, and the collar, or, band. And I was going up to camp a couple days early, and I thought, I will have tons of knitting time. When I get there, I will have tons of time to knit during camp, and I will just take it with me, and I'll finish it there, and I'll open up the steek, and I'll wear it, even if it's not like got a perfect block on it. It'll be fine. I have my pink dress, it's all finished, it'll all be good. So the Saturday before knitting camp, I thought I will just get the bottom band set up so that everything is like easy. I can just start knitting. I don't have to make any decisions, you know, when I'm there and there's a bunch of people around. And so this is the little pattern. I have made, I think this is, what is this, my, I don't know, 10th, 11th sweater. And I do a different edge on all of them. Traditionally, they were just a knit one, purl one, ribbed, you know, borders. But I like to change them up. And so this is the one that I have chosen for this kind of little lattice. This is twisted rib, and then this little lattice and a picot kind of edge. So this one I didn't, for the sleeves, I just went from the stitch count that I had and I went in. So this shows how that lattice kind of draws it in and then comes back out. And I like that on the sleeve, but I didn't want to do that for the bottom because I didn't want it to flare out for at my hips. So I was going to increase stitches before starting this twisted rib there. So anyway, it was the Saturday before and I was going to get it all set up and I couldn't get the stitch count to work out. And, you know, because I was increasing stitches on one side of the steek and then the other side of the steek. And I thought, why is this not coming out? So at that point, and only at that point, I counted the stitches. And I had 10 more stitches on the right side of the steek than I did on the left side of the steek. It went back to when I was setting up and dividing for the sleeves, because you do I did the collar in the round, and then you divide the stitches, and I did those in the round. And I had set that up wrong. I don't know. I mean, I think I know what happened sort of, but I didn't catch it until the entire sweater was nearly finished. There's really no like course correction. You can fudge that because the steek would have been off center. Yeah, it was a little heartbreaking. I rip out my knitting all the time. But this was a lot of knitting, and I'd literally been doing it since January. And I wrote to a bunch of my camp friends and said, because they had all seen me working on it during Zoom calls and stuff. And I was like, it is not going to come. It is not going to be there. It is not going to be finished. And, they offered to like, bring it with you. We'll rip it out for you. And I was going to let them do that. And then I woke up the next day and I almost got sick to my stomach when I saw it in the morning. So I ripped it out right then and there, skeined the yarn up, washed it, and got it back on needles, split for the sleeves, and then left it so that I could have other people count my stitches and make sure that I had them right. So I started re-knitting it, and a lot of people said, just put it aside and come back to it. And I'm like, no. I started knitting on it when I was at camp, and this is as far as I am. So I am now at the point where I almost was right before. So after I split for the armholes, I do my sweaters. This is sort of the method that I have started doing. I do the top part in the round, and then I do split for the at the side, and I do the front and back separately because it goes quicker for me if I can knit and purl back rather than really long rows where you're just knitting around and around and around. And I don't mind sewing a side seam. So I have my front and back stitches are separated. So my front stitches are this is my back. I am to the first garter ridge at the bottom, and then this is my front. Those stitches are still on needles because then I'm going to do the picot edge kind of all the way around, and then I just need to pick up I will do a crochet steek and do the button band, I do sort of a vertical intarsia kind of method to do the button band, and then the neck band, open it up, block it, it'll be, so there is really a light kind of shining at the end of the tunnel. And I knit most of the second band. That's what I did. So that second band, that's what I knit, and it took pretty much all day yesterday. So yeah, so this is what I have been knitting pretty much most of all, especially since the end of July. And the reason why I knew that I couldn't put this aside and come back to it and it would be all fine is because I used to do one of these sweaters every year before camp. And back in 2020, I was knitting on a bohus, and we all know what happened in 2020. And I think it was April when we got, the notification that knitting camp was canceled, as everything was. And I was knitting on a bohus. And I thought, I don't need to finish this right now. And I put it aside. And it has literally been put aside for all that time. I did take it back. I took it out last winter sometime and looked at it. And it's sort of just been sitting there ever since. And it hasn't been finished. So this one it's really pretty. I just, you put it aside. I just couldn't get back to it. So this one is called Pink Flower. And this is going to be a little cropped one. So it's got kind of 3/4 length sleeves. I've got this really pretty Japanese stitch pattern for the borders. And this one is also going to be a little cardigan. And I actually have the steek crocheted on this one. I just have to do the button bands and the neck band, open it up, and it'll be done. So yeah, so when this one gets finished, when Borin gets finished, I'm going to finish this one, and then I'm going to order myself a new kit, a bohus kit. I have several on my short list that I really want to make, and maybe that'll be my Christmas present. Maybe I will start that I like to start them on New Year's Day. So yeah, those are kind of two big plans. It shouldn't take too much to get them both finished up, and it will feel like an enormous weight off my shoulders when they're both done. I am thinking about another sweater that I really want to knit. And this is a Meg Swansen design. This is from the newest issue of her little publication called Woolgathering. And it's this little V-necked cardigan that has this little shawl collar. It's done using the EPS, the Elizabeth Zimmerman's percentage system. I think it's a really nice you can overlay anything on it. You could put a colorwork pattern on there or lace stitches on it. What I want to do is I want to do cables, like an Aran-y, with that little collar. I think it'll be really, really fun. Originally, when this came out, I thought of this yarn, which is hand spun, that I spun way a long time ago. It is, it was a BFL cross. I think it was a BFL Border Leicester cross. And I spun this I was thinking that it was a worsted weight. And so I've been swatching it. Started on size 8 needles. And I thought, no, this is not a worsted weight. This is like an Aran weight. So then I went up needles. I went, oh, I think this might be a bulky weight almost. But I also have these buttons that I wanted to use, and these are antlers buttons made from shed antlers. So I think that would be really fun. I think they would really go together. My idea was to do the entire thing, use this, but make it like an Aran. But I only have 1,500 yards, which I don't think is enough to do a full Aran. So I was thinking I could just do cable pattern on the sleeves. So that's where I am in my thinking process and kind of swatching process. If that doesn't work, I have some Lisa Sousa. Let me get it down. So this is a Lisa Sousa Polworth yarn that I bought 10 years ago because she dates it, and it's in the color called Silver Lake, but it's this kind of bluey grayy, and I believe this is a sport weight, and I have like 2,000 yards at least, I think of it. So I think I would definitely have enough yardage to do a full errand with that and make it longer and whatnot. But I was also thinking yesterday that it would be really pretty in Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. There's a really pretty color I love that's kind of gray, but it's got pink in it. I can't think of what the name, postcard maybe? That's what's coming to mind, but I'm not sure that that's the right name. But I think that could be really pretty in it. I can just see it in my mind's eye. So I don't know. But after those 2 boho sweaters get finished, I do want to get started on the Meg's Woolgathering sweater. The other thing that's really captured my heart the last couple years are, and it's kind of what I've been knitting a lot, are Estonian mittens. Last year, this book was published right before, well, this book, the English version of this book, was published right before Christmas. So this was my Christmas present. Last year, the original Estonian language version came out a couple years ago, but it took a couple years to get it translated. It's a really thick book, and it's got gorgeous mittens. Now, the Estonians, they knit really tiny gauge mittens, which I love. I love knitting tiny gauge. Because the tighter you knit a mitten, the warmer it's going to be. So you can have like a thinner yarn, like a fingering lace weight yarn, and if you knit it tightly enough, it's still going to be plenty warm. So a lot of the mittens and gloves that I've knit the last couple years have been either kits from them or books from them. So I got this book last year at Christmas, and the mittens that I fell in love with, well, I fell in love with a lot of the mittens, but this was one of them that I just fell in love with. They're knit to such a fine gauge, I could never even get the gauge of this mitten. And this is a man's size mitten, and yeah, it's really fine. So they actually made another one and this was their sort of scaled down version. So I decided that I really wanted to knit. I'm going to knit the scaled down version where it comes to the patterning across the back of the hand. It actually has a sort of intarsia in the round, sort of that motif on the back of the hand. But I liked this cuff better. So I'm knitting this cuff, and the stitch patterns are small enough that I am sort of changing, fudging stitch counts, because with each band of color, you change your stitch count. So I'm sort of changing that, but then when it gets to the back of hand, I'm going to do the smaller one. And so I have started on that. And so this is where I am with those. The colors are not coming up quite as brilliantly as they are in real life, but it's got a lot of these little braids. It's got this really pretty little, which I have never done before, this kind of little band. And they're super fun. Now this is done with a lace weight yarn that they sell. It's I think it's a Danish mill that spins it, but then they repackage it under kind of their brand. But it's a lace weight lambswool, and so it's nice and soft. And these are knit to a super fine gauge. They are knit on size 1 millimeter. That's 5 zeros, size 5 zeros, quintuple zero needles, and the gauge is something like 15 stitches to the inch. Yeah, so I can only knit about 3 rounds in a day because I've all my other kind of Estonian mittens are either on a triple or quadruple zero, and I can knit just holding them my normal way. These needles I do need to hold a little bit differently because otherwise they will bend in my hands. They're like that tiny. So, but they're super fun, and I love them. I will try to put a picture in of because the colors are so much prettier in real life. So there's a ton of mittens in this book that I want to knit, and so I had to start. I started. I was going to like make a pair every month, but you know that was the first month, and that's as far as I've gotten. And these were September's, which you see they're not that much farther, and I didn't start October. Anyway, this is the ones that also the ones that I'm knitting, which I have wanted to do Christmas mittens, and to me they look like Christmas mittens, and I'm going to do them in these same colors. But I've wanted Christmas mittens for years, and I don't know why they're not a thing, right? Because Christmas socks, people anywhere wear Christmas socks, but why not Christmas mittens? I do have a red duffel coat, and I have a really big red Aran sweater, so I think they'll be super fun. So these are my start of my Christmas mittens, and yeah, the color's not showing up as vibrant on these either, but yeah. So it has this kind of little almost feather and fan, and then I'm just about to start the color work. Now this yarn is Rama Lamel yarn, which is a light fingering weight. The red and the white are that. And then the green is this yarn, which is left over from, it's hand spun, and it's Corriedale and Angora. But I had this left over, and I thought it looked like a good, green, like Christmas green. And then there's just these couple, like little things of blue in the mitt, or the cuff. And I found this blue, which was left over Kimmet fairy hair, which I had, I think, in one of her hat kits. So I'm just using that because the green and there's not that much. And so I actually think the loft of the Angora gives it a nice little look. These I'm doing on size 1.5 millimeter, which is 000. That's what these are started on. I may do another start and just try them on 00s. I'm going to wait and do a little bit of just the plain red and white color work stranding, just to see where I am as far as size. I do tend to like my mittens to be larger. One year I made a pair of mittens, of the Estonian mittens, and I used the exact yarn, and they don't give gauges. That's the one thing about their books. They do not give gauges. But I used the same yarn and the same needles and everything, and they came up and they fit me. But I just like more room in my mittens. I like to curl my fingers up in them and stuff. So I might expand. I'm just going to see where I am. And then I have one other project to show you that's on needles. And this comes from a pattern that we received at Knitting Camp. It's one of the newest Schoolhouse Press patterns. I will have to put a picture of it in because we just got sort of a bare bones kind of black and white copy, not, all like nice layout and everything like the actual pattern has. And it's called the Stained Glass Shawl. And it is Cully Swansen. Cully is Meg's son. It is his design. And it's kind of a short row pattern. I wanted to use something from Stash because I got all this yarn. I kind of want to use it. I want to use it up. So I kind of looked through everything, and I came out with what's softer around your neck than kids okays, I ask you. So I came up with sort of the leading in this black kids okays, and then I had, I think it's called Pearl, and that I had, so they looked pretty together. And then I kind of wanted to do red, but I didn't have red, and so I'm planning to do this kind of bright pink with it, which I think will go sort of with my coats, and kind of black and white and pink are sort of my colors, even though I'm wearing a red scarf today. So this is where I am right now. It's going to be sort of hard to see, and you do this very clever bit so that you do so that it's totally reversible. And I got to this point on it, and I was knitting steadily, and I looked at it and thought, this is just plain garter. I could totally throw in the sort of glass, what are supposed to be the glass sections, I could totally throw a small lace pattern in there. So that's kind of why I stopped, because I thought I'm gonna be ripping this Kids Okays out and inserting, but I need to kind of chart it out a little bit so that I you know, kind of where I'm going with it, with the short rows. And yeah, so that is that one. And of course I do have a pair of socks on the needles. Who doesn't have a pair of socks on the needles? Mine live in my car for just the times when I need sort of, I'm going to be waiting for the oil change in the car, or at the hairdresser, or something. So it just lives in my car. It's an opal Little Prince, the rose sock that I have on the needles. And then I thought I will just show you the little, because I don't have anything finished to show you, I will show you the little scarf that I've been wearing today. This is cashmere that I had left over from a big half shawl, and I knit this, I think it was last year, just this little kind of crescent shawl. This is a Boo Knits, I think it's Fragile Heart, but I could be wrong. Fragile Heart, I tend to knit that one the most. About 400 yards left, and I knew I could get a little shawl out and do the whole thing, you know, use up all of the yarn. So yeah, so that is what this is. So that catches you up with all the knitting. I will probably be having a sewing video out kind of later this week. I did get notice that my Think Pink box is on the way, so I'm thinking that that will come some point this week. So I will hopefully do an unboxing and put that up, and then I will hope to kind of alternate between sewing and knitting videos. You can see I have a lot of works in progress and a lot of ideas for sewing projects too. So thank you all so much for watching. If you are not already a subscriber, please do click that subscribe button. Remember to like the video, and until I see you again, from my heart to yours, happy knitting.